want to have you sign in, so we're going to invite you to go ahead and do that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and continue. Welcome, everybody. We are so happy to have you here this afternoon. Happy Tuesday. We are very, very happy that you are here. Please make sure that you have signed in. The sign-in link is in the chat for you. And so we will go ahead and get started. We're going to get started by introducing ourselves. So we're going to start from the left, and we will go ahead and introduce ourselves. Dana, get us started.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Dana Neal. I'm an instructional specialist with the San Fernando-Sylmar Community of Schools.
Hi, I will go next because I'm Trish Burke. I am an instructional specialist from the Panorama in North Hollywood Valley Village Community School. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ann Argo. I am the Local District Northeast Elementary Instructional Coordinator for English learners.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Melton Pizzuto, Elementary Math Coordinator.
Hi, my name is Jerry Song. I'm the Instructional Specialist for Sunland Tahunga and Sun Valley COS.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jen Krause, and I'm the Elementary ELA Coordinator for Local District Northeast.
And I am Jenny Vasquez, Standard English Learner Coordinator, LDNE.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Zeta Cuellar. I am the Instructional Specialist for the Van Nuys Valley Glen Community of Schools.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sylvia Wells, the Instructional Specialist here at San Fernando-Sylmar COS.
Like I said earlier, we are all very happy to have you here today. We're very excited to share our next steps, instructional routines, planning templates with samples, comprehensive professional development support. And so this presentation that we're going to engage in delineates what Local District Northeast, the instructional support team, is providing. Like I said, those routines, those templates, resources, and we will still continue to focus on student engagement, standards-based rigorous instruction, and constructive conversation and discussion. Here is our agenda for today. We are going to preview the next steps instructional routines pathway. We're going to look at the building blocks of resources available and then some next steps collaboration. We have included the Schoology group name, LD&E Elementary Instruction, and the access code in case you have not joined that one yet. And so please do. We will make sure to put that in the chat as well. Okay, so our next steps overview. Here we go. And so we just are ending, or just ended cycle 1, where we gave you those first 5 weeks pre-made, pre-packaged materials ready to go. And we're entering now cycle 2. And here you will receive instructional routines, planning templates with samples, like I said earlier, as well as comprehensive PD support where you are now in. And so our cycle 2 will be from September 28th until November 6th. And then we have cycle 3 that will be coming up after that. I want to take you now to this video overview of what we have in store for you. And so we're going to continue learning about these building blocks and how we're going to put these pieces together as we enter our new cycle. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lisa.
Thanks, Jenny. So everyone, in these instructional routines, next steps, you'll be getting some sample lessons that you'll be able to use, as well as templates and supports for building your own lessons using the samples. And so we want to remind you of what was shared previously for the first 5 weeks of school. So in the first 5 weeks of lessons, we were focusing, as Jenny mentioned, on student engagement, standards-based rigorous instruction, and constructive conversation and discussion. And so we built those resources to be support to all of you and to students. And those lessons were pre-packaged and ready to go to help us all focus on instruction while we were all getting used to new technologies and also helping our families and students get acclimated to using technology to access remote learning. And on the next slide, you'll see a visual that some of you might be familiar to some of you. It is the roadmap. So with those materials, you all received student-facing slides that you could use as you wish, and you could use them in the pre-packaged mold in Schoology or in Google Slides, or you could customize them to fit your needs. And we also provided some ready-made assignments in Schoology. So now that we've taken a look at what was provided for the first 5 weeks, Anne is going to walk us through what the next steps are for the instructional routines.
Great, thank you, Lisa. And so as Lisa reviewed where we have been, now let's talk about the next steps, which is instructional routines. And let's talk about what we have in store for you. So as Lisa said, we know that teachers needed time to get acclimated into this distance learning. Starting off a new school year was a different lift than transitioning in the spring. And now that teachers have settled in with their students, you've had time to assess their skills, whether it's from formative assessments, observations, maybe even some of you have done some formal assessments in your classroom, and you're about to do some that will give you some critical information about the needs of your students. And so it is important that we continue high impact routines in this time of distance learning. We also understand that you as teachers need to make instructional planning decisions in support of the individual needs of your class and your students. So we're providing sample lessons that demonstrate the flow of these high impact routines and templates for continued planning, and we're going to have curated resources to help you in the planning after the sample lessons. And so as we move on to the next slide, we just really want to help with the conceptual understanding of where have we been and where are we going now. So if we think about comparing cycle 1 with what we're going to be rolling out for cycles 2 and 3, think of cycle 1 as the complete package. It had the lessons with student-facing slides, facilitator guides, choice boards, jam boards, everything a teacher could need. And it was all put into Schoology so that you, the teachers, could copy them over into your own Schoology course for your students to use. You also had the option to take the teacher slide deck and adjust it if you saw fit for your students. For cycle 2 and 3, we really want to honor the teacher discretion in your planning, knowing that what we're offering is not everything that you should teach. We cannot make those full decisions, and you have curriculum and you have standards that go beyond what we are here. These high impact routines are focusing on skills that are core to what you're doing, but not exhaustive of what you will be teaching. And so we hope that you can understand the flow of our routines through our sample lessons, as well as how the templates work, so that you can continue the planning and incorporate your curriculum and your resources as you see fit. So what we're going to be offering is the routines. language development routines, foundational skills routines, number sense, reasoning routines, problem-solving routines, and routines for solving real-world problems. And they're going to be shared through samples, and you'll see that each content area might have a little bit different schema for their samples, but they do include student-facing slides, and you'll see the pattern and structure of each routine. And then we're going to provide planning templates that incorporates Google Slide templates, choice boards, and I think you'll be very happy to see the curated resources that we are providing that might bridge between your curriculum and pieces that we're using, but also when we've brought in other resources, we are sharing those curated resources with you. And so now as we go into the flow, I'm going to turn things over to Jen so she can explain a little more about that.
Thanks, Anne. And I'm going to show you what each of the different samples will look like across their format, meaning some are a full week sample lesson, others do 1 day for each of the 6 weeks. And so you're going to see what each of the different content areas represent in terms of those sample lessons. And here we go. So you're going to notice that for ELD, MELD, ELA, those follow a 5-day cycle. So the routines for language development and foundational skills will show you a sample that goes across 5 days. In math, there are different routines for number sense and reasoning and problem solving, and those each have different models that you'll see when Lisa talks about her build. For social emotional, this is a 5-day cycle of lessons, and for science, it's 3 days a week. So you'll see those samples representative when each of us speak on our content areas. And so now, as we go forward, in looking at the next steps instructional routines, we're going to show you how these resources all fit together and how what we have put together in terms of resources, templates, information can be used to build out these routines on a consistent basis throughout this cycle. And so in order to find these materials, I'm going to be turning it over to Jerry.
Hi, everyone. So now we've talked about all these wonderful things that we're going to be sharing with you. And you might be asking, well, where are they, right? And so we're going to go to the next slide, and we're going to show you, again, the LD&E elementary instruction group that I'm sure all of you are in. And if not, you have the access code right there. And I believe it was also shared in the chat. And so all of these materials will be shared in that Schoology group, but it'll be shared as a beautifully designed Next Steps Instructional Routines Teacher Handbook. Okay, so you're gonna see these teacher handbooks, which are actually Google Slides. And what's great is because they're Google Slides, if the instruction team, we're going to be constantly adding to it and maybe modifying and making it perfect until September 28th, which is when it's going to go live. Anytime you click on that link, the handbook that you're looking at will be the most up-to-date, so which is great. And on the next slide, we're going to be looking at, again, the teacher handbook. And within this teacher handbook are going to be the samples for the routines, and as well as the templates and resources. So there's going to be a lot of information in each of these handbooks. And again, every content area has them. And we're going to move over to Jenny, who's actually going to talk about the ELD and MELD teacher handbook.
So for ELD and MELD, mainstream English language development and English language development, we are looking here at the week at a glance. As a local district, we lead with language and are responsive to the needs of our language, all our language learners. So we are combining ELD and MELD moving forward while ensuring that we are differentiating for our English learners and our standard English learners. It is a whole group, small group, whole group model. This is a 5-day synchronous time for the teacher. However, for the students, if they are not meeting with the teacher during that small group, they are involved in asynchronous learning activities. Cycle 2 and 3 will include this 1-week sample, and which will become the pattern for you to use within the cycles. The week includes a culturally relevant text, a read aloud where metacognitive strategies are modeled and taught. The next 3 days follow the pattern of a visual text around that read aloud. And then having a constructive conversation. We then go into part of the text and have another constructive conversation around a text-dependent question. In day 4, it is the day of differentiation. Just know that this arrow is signaling that for some grade levels, these 2 days may be switched around, but this is when we are differentiating. Our ELs are being taught using the ELD standards, and our SELs, or probable SELs, are being taught with the ELA language standards. We then, on day 5, there is a response to the reading via a writing or video task for our students to do. And we do have plenty of resources to share. And so here is a calendar. And so just know that for week 1, again, which begins on September 28th, the first day of cycle 2, you will have a full week of ELD and MELD. And then the following weeks, you will build your own. But don't worry, because in this handbook, you will have the sample lessons, you will have templates to use, as well as lesson resources to build your own lessons. You will have a whole slide deck of inclusions to just bring into your slide deck for the, starting week 2 of cycle 2. There's also a choice board template there. There is a document with CLR, culturally and linguistically relevant texts. There's a whole list with video links for read alouds. And so it really provides for you a wealth of resources that you can take and then put into your lessons and make them your own. I also want to point out the table of contents in the handbook, as it is a very good resource to go to first. And just also want to mark that some of the tabs do have several pages within them, so make sure that you are clicking on that little next page icon so that you can see the next page. But please bookmark the handbook for each of the content areas, because this is where you will get your sample lesson. There's a video walkthrough of the lesson as well there, and plenty of resources for you to use. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jen to go over our next content.
Thanks, Jenny. So for ELA, the high impact routine that we will be featuring in our sample lessons is around foundational skills, and this does span grades K to 5. You will notice that in kinder through 2nd, we do add in phonemic awareness and irregular and high frequency words. You will not see those built into the K5 lessons. However, if you felt like students still needed some support in those areas, you could always look at the handbook from the K2 grade levels, or TK to 2, I should say, to see if there were any additional templates you might want to bring over. So these were based on the foundational skills continuum, as well as the phonemic awareness continuum, phonological awareness continuum, and phonics continuum. All of the routines are aligned to DIBELS so that we can really reinforce those skills and strategies for students. And this is one of the most important building blocks in ELA. So that's why we chose this high impact routine. But of course, in addition to our foundational skills, we would want to make sure to expose our students to that complex text where they can have discussions, as well as writing strategies and routines. So again, this really complements the ELA block nicely. Many of the routines you will see would work really wonderfully in small group settings as well, with some of the activities, games, and strategies. So as we go to the next slide, you will see that this routine has been built as a 5-day routine. So the sample lessons you will see will have the structure of 5 days that go through each part of that continuum in a cycle. And you'll notice that this routine is something that's meant to be very cyclical and spiral in nature. And so it's something that can be repeated weekly by just changing out the focus skill for the week. So you'll see that we have also supported with curation of resources to help build your own in the following weeks after the sample lesson. So Jenny, if you go to the next slide, some highlights of the handbook are, again, the sample lessons you will see for each of the grade levels. We have lots of wonderful templates to access. They are all aligned to the curriculum and scope and sequence of your curriculum. So you'll find that there's a handbook for Benchmark TK to 2, for Wonders TK to 2, as well as for Benchmark 3 to 5 and Wonders 3 to 5. So again, these have all been aligned to the scope and sequence for the foundational skills. They just really give that targeted, systematic instruction and routine. And so some of the templates you're going to find, you'll find some of the templates used in the first 25 days. So those are all ready for you to go as well, including choice board templates and tutorials. We have some blending routine templates. We have all of the syllable lesson templates ready to go for you as well. You will notice that, as Jenny said, we have curated resources. So that means that you'll see something that looks very similar to a choice board, where you can find resources that align to the skill that you are focusing on. So you can just sub out for the new skill. So one more thing that will really enhance this experience for students is the use of Amplify Reading, which is now an app available on Schoology. And this is a great asynchronous complement to these routines for students to reinforce and practice these skills. So we're really excited to have our students dig into foundational skills and really shore up any pieces that might need work in those continuums. And so now I'm going to pass it over to Anne.
Great, thank you, Jen. So this next section is going to talk about target language arts. So this is for the dual language schools. The target language arts, we tried to mirror what was happening in ELA with the foundational skills and routines. There are a few minor differences, and those are around the differences between the two languages. So the two differences that I'd like to point out are the need in target language arts to build vocabulary and robust vocabulary. And so we added in a vocabulary routine with picture cards and word cards. And then we also are giving more focus to comprehension of text when they do the decodables or the leveled readers. Because one thing that we know is that in reading English, generally your comprehension is you have better oral comprehension than what you can read. However, in Spanish, we know that some learners are able to read very fluently without knowing what they are reading, because it's such a lovely language and so phonetic in following the rules and not breaking the rules. So as we move to the next slide, I want to address our dual language teachers who are teaching Armenian. So MED has brought and delivered Armenian Start Smart 1.0 for grades 2 through 4, and you can access them from the MED Dual Language Schoology group. And we highly encourage you to check that out, because we know that you have done a lot of the building on your own for many years. And we hope that you find this to be a resource that you can bring in constructive conversation skills in your target language arts classroom for Armenian. So then as we move to the next slide, you'll see our dual language resources are going to be housed in the ELD MELD. It's the ELD MELD and Dual Language Resource Notebook. And you will see that there will be a page for each of the curriculum. So there's a page for Benchmark and a page for Wonders, the actual sample lessons, which follows the 5-day flow, just like ELA and ELD and MELD. And then we've created a page that has resources. So you'll see in the sample deck, you'll see the routines, and we've identified the content for those routines for the 5 weeks after the sample. And then in the resource slide deck, we've pulled the resources for you. So if we're focusing on vocabulary, you'll find the clip art and the words that you can just make a copy of the sample and replace it with the new content for each subsequent week. And so just to review, that you'll see it's the same flow. So for the 2 cycles, you'll get 5 sample lessons, that is a week. And then there'll be 5 weeks after that that you will be able to use those samples as a model. And we have curated resources and a guide for what goes into those foundational skills. And just as a reminder, these routines are not exhaustive. It should not be everything and the only thing that you teach. We highly encourage you to continue consulting your curriculum and designing your lessons in totality that serve your individual class and student needs. So for our next curriculum area, I'm going to hand things over to Lisa, who's going to share with you what we have in store for math.
Thanks, Anne. Hello, everyone. So for elementary math, I was actually just responding to someone in the chat about this, and I think it's a great question. We are tying the sample lessons and the resources that we are building to the pedagogical initiatives for elementary math in local district Northeast. So you can use these no matter what curriculum you're using. And there is a page in the math handbook that offers support for the different curriculum materials, including videos and tutorials and websites that will help you with implementation of My Math, Eureka Math, or illustrative math. So the vision for elementary math that we've been focusing on for a number of years now includes 3-phase problem solving. So that's going to be one of the resources that you will see embedded in the handbook materials. There will be sample lessons and templates there. And then there will be a twist on 3-phase problem solving called 3-act tasks. So some of you may have learned about that in the spring. We did some professional development on that when we started remote instruction. And so if you're not familiar with it, I highly encourage you to try it. It's a fun twist on a 3-phase lesson. The other bucket of resources that we're going to be providing support with is number sense and reasoning routines. So that would include things like number talks, choral counting, quick images, true-false number sentences, and all of these things tie to the math practice standards. That's why they're considered high leverage instruction. So on the next slide, you'll see a sample that shows you the way that we're designing these materials. You can, of course, use them however you would like. Many of you are already very familiar with many different number sense and reasoning routines, or you might have others that you like to use, and that's totally okay. These are completely open for you to use in a way that makes sense to you. But the way we are designing them is so that there is a sample available to you to start off your week on a Monday, for example, and then you have resources that you could use to build your own number sense routine going forward for the rest of the week. So if the Monday sample starts off with choral counting, for example, then you have a resource to build some more choral counting activities for the rest of the week. And then week 2's resource might look like a visual number talk, and then you'll have some more resources to build your own for the rest of the week. So that's the way we are designing the number sense routines. On the next slide, you'll see the vision for designing the problem solving, which includes 3-phase and 3-act tasks. And then we've added a little bonus here, which is counting collections. Many of you are already implementing that instructional routine in your classroom, or maybe you started trying it for the first time while you tried the first 5 weeks of lessons resources. All of these things were embedded in those materials, so you may be familiar with counting collections already if you tried the first 5 weeks. So for this instructional routine, the resources that our team is providing are intended to last you more than 1 day. So a problem-solving routine using 3-phase or counting collections or a 3-act task might take 2 or 3 days. You might even decide to spread it out over a week. that's totally up to you, but we're providing one sample for this 6-week cycle, and then resources for you to build your own. So you would just switch out the problem and some of the links on the slides, and you could use the templates that we have provided. On the next slide, you'll see some screenshots of our math handbook. So in this handbook, as I mentioned, you'll have sample lessons. So on the left, you'll see there's a chart there, and that screenshot is a little old. It's a little more filled in right now. And our cycle 2 is set to start September 28th, which is next week. So we're still building out some of those samples, but you will see most of the templates are there now when you go in. And then in the middle, you'll see a sample page. So if I click on the number sense routine tab in the handbook, you'll go to a page that looks like the one that's screenshotted there in the middle. And you'll see the different kinds of number sense routines that are available to you, like ways to make, number talk images, a number string. And when you click on them, you'll get resources that you can use to build your own. The other thing that you'll notice is that the other pages in the handbook also have resources. So the problem solving page, the 3-act page, the counting collections page, all have resources for you to read more about the routine. It has a planning template. It has videos that you can watch to watch a teacher facilitate the routine, and ideas for how you can make your own going forward. So that's the summary of what's available to you for elementary math. So I'm going to pass things off to Jerry right now, and he's going to talk about elementary science.
Thank you, Lisa. And so science is a little bit different because Amplify and FOSS both have slide decks already designed for the entire course. And so it's just a matter of utilizing those slide decks that are already created. And what's even better is that both companies are working on modified slide decks for distance learning. And they are modifying it in the sense that they're making it smaller. So it's less material, but also they're taking away any of the things that we can't really do with distance learning, such as the hands-on activities. And so both of them have the slide decks ready for you. And they are constantly building more as we go along. In cycle 1, a lot of this was given to you, the slide decks were given to you through a choice board. But for cycle 2 and cycle 3, we're going to be utilizing the actual Schoology app, which is great because that's what we're going to be utilizing from now on. And what's great is you don't have to worry about another login. You don't have to worry about where do I go to get to this platform. You install the app, and once you install the app, you have everything available to you right there. So on the next slide, we're going to be looking at here. So again, you can see this one's a little bit different because all of the materials are there and you're just utilizing them, right? And you can do a couple different things with them. You can just present the slides that were prepared already by the publishers, or you can actually embed them into your Schoology course, which is a good idea because then students can actually access those slide decks all throughout the year. And they can go back and look at something maybe more in depth if they want to. So that's also a great opportunity for them to do. And finally, on the next slide, we're going to be looking at the science handbook. And as you can see right there in the middle, we have the table of contents. And so we have all the information there. And the tabs on the right-hand side of the handbooks are available for you. There's a lot of materials, a lot of resources there. I'm going to just talk about 2 for now. But again, please click on the tabs and make sure you look through all the materials. So these 2 these are 2 screenshots, one for Amplify and one for FOSS. They kind of walk you through how to access the materials and how to install the apps into your Schoology course. So for Amplify, something to keep in mind, there are 2 separate apps. There's a student app and a teacher app. When you install the student app, you want to make sure that you do not check off for admins only so that students can actually access them. However, of course, for the teacher app, you do not want to, well, you want to check off admin only so that students aren't able to actually access the TEs and so forth. And so again, the handbook will walk you through step by step on how to install each of those apps. And they're pretty simple. And once you've done it, it's about the same thing for every time. And then for the FOSS materials, it's a little bit simpler. There's only one. Okay, and so you're going to access those, and the materials are right there. And also, don't forget that both of them, there's actually the DOI Schoology groups also have a ton of resources within them for both of these courses. All right, so then now we're going to move on to Scott, who's going to be giving us SEL resources.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now? Yeah. My name's Scott Metzger. I'm the local District Northeast Social Emotional Learning Teacher Advisor, K through 12. In the chat, someone said overwhelming. So let's go ahead and take some deep breaths and stretch out. I just have to say that the local District Northeast instructional team has provided you with so many great resources. And not only that is they've given you the ability to make it unique for your classroom, your student needs. So in regards to social emotional learning, I know cycle 1, there were the student facing slides. Cycle 2, moving forward for the rest of the year, we're going to transition to the 2 district approved curriculums in regards to social emotional learning. And that would be Sanford Harmony and Second Step. What I did on this first slide is an SEL week at a glance, and it's tied into the tag days of Mindful Monday, Gratitude Tuesday, etc. And underneath that is kind of a theme, and we're focusing first on Sanford Harmony, and basically we're doing a daily practice called Meetup, which if you're familiar with restorative practices, it's basically like a community building circle, because the goal of SEL is to increase student engagement and also build community. So the top is the theme day, the second is the Sanford Harmony theme addressed, and on the bottom you have the kind of outline of each little lesson you're going to give. So next slide. Okay, as I said earlier, we're focusing on the Sanford Harmony curriculum, and you have the basic outline of each lesson. And if you see them, if you read them, and of course these will be posted later, you'll see it's very similar to a restorative practice community building circle. It's basically checking in with your students and seeing where they're at, how they're feeling, and building on the social emotional learning skills that you've taught them or exposed them to, and it's just letting them practice. In the Schoology group, you're going to be posting how to access both curriculums in regards to Second Step and Sanford Harmony. It's kind of like science in regards to both platforms, or excuse me, both curriculums are virtual platforms now. So you'll have access to all the curriculum material. And I also will put in my contact information, and we're lucky to have another team member, Carla Lopez, who's not here today, but she's elementary school specific, and we'll both be here to support you in getting social emotional learning skills in your classrooms. And that's it. Thank you for coming.
And so what we want to do right now is we know that this is a lot to process. Don't worry. We know that you need some time to play with some of the materials, and you might decide based on what we shared today to dig into one particular content area because maybe there's one that you are really interested in. And so we want to invite you to take some time to go into the group and go into that folder that Jerry mentioned, the Next Steps Instructional Routines folder. It's going to be at the top in the resources, and select any of the content areas that you're most interested in so you can start exploring some of those tools and be thinking about how you might use them moving forward. And so I'm gonna set the timer for 10 minutes. So it's 3:15 right now. So we will come back at 3:25. I'm gonna put that in the chat right now. And I'm gonna turn some music on for us. So I'll share my screen again. So we have some quiet music playing in the background, and we will come back together at 3:25. All right, everyone, it's 3:25. We're gonna come back together, and I believe Jenny's gonna share her screen one more time, and we're gonna wrap up our time together. Thank you all for taking some time to look at the resources and the materials. We wanted to incorporate this visual here to help us kind of understand how we might use these tools. And one thing that we wanted to highlight is that this will not encompass your entire block of time, but you will hopefully be able to use these routines because they are very high leverage. And we know that with your curriculum materials you have and the other resources you have available, this will help to create a very comprehensive and rigorous instructional program. So on the next slide, we have a sample cycle here for you of how you might use some of these slides and templates. And so step one would be to use the instructional team instructional routine student-facing slides. So you would make a copy of those and they would automatically be put in your Google Drive. And then you would use that as your first lesson or your first piece of a lesson or part of a lesson with your students. And then to use that as a template, you would then make a new copy and rename it for the next day or for the next week in Google Drive. And then you would change out the content in that new copy. So you would use that as a template and switch out, for example, the problem you might use or the story you might be reading or a link that will access the content for the day. And then you would plan the rest of your content block using your textbook materials or supplemental resources. For example, in math, if you're using the number sense routines, you would need to do more than just the number sense routine for your entire math block. So that would help you with that component of the lesson, but you would also need to bring in the other pieces to make your lesson completely comprehensive. And then step 5 is repeating steps 2 through 4. And so if you really want to use the templates to make them a consistent routine in your classroom and you'd like to use them on a weekly or daily basis, then reusing the previous week's material, renaming it in Google Drive, and switching out the content will be a really helpful way to do that. So we're hoping that this example of a cycle will make that a little more clear. And I noticed in the chat, some people were asking about more information about Google Slides. And so I think we've all been taking note of that, and that's helping us to know some next steps for us in terms of some additional supports that we might be able to provide. And we'll make sure to email all of you after our sign-in today. I'll use the sign-in sheet to email everybody some links to some Google Slides tutorials or supports for embedding slides in Schoology as well, if that's something you'd like to do. All right, and so I'm gonna pass things back to Jenny, and she's gonna help us wrap up our day.
Yes. And like Lisa said, you know, it really does help us when you put in the chat, you know, what you would like support with, and as we move forward. But just know that the LD&E team, family, we really are a family. We're definitely doing our best to support you your needs. And so we thank you for being here. We thank you for taking the time to be at this PD. And here is a slide with all our contact information. And so just know that you can reach out to us via email to ask any questions that you may still have. And you know, as you're working and planning, and that's one of the things too that we definitely want to emphasize, that don't do this alone. Please, please collaborate with your grade level, get your colleagues. This needs to be a group effort because, you know, we are in this new environment and we need each other. And so I do highly encourage you to do that, to lean on each other, be there for each other as a grade level, and help each other out as you move forward. And again, but this is our info for you to contact us for support or questions you may have.